own line. And met by some very willing Auckland defence. And pushed back a couple of metres. Darren just goes from dubbing half to pick up Darren Doherty. 25 metres out from his own line.
As now the Adelaide Rams make their way out onto Marathon Stadium for the first time.
Hello and welcome to the Rampage League podcast. My name is Darren, and we're coming to you live from this great venue, the Brew Boys Brewery, down here in Croydon Park, South Australia. We appreciate the great team here at Brew Boys for always supporting the Rampage League podcast and Rugby League in South Australia. And I've got no one to introduce tonight. It's just me running the show and the presenter tonight. Everyone's away with family or work commitments, so you're just with me.
There's a line stretching over 1,000 kilometers from the desert to the sea. It divides two kingdoms. A battle line. To the north, a state built on pride.
Queensland are dominating.
They come tougher every year.
That shook the stadium.
On the new south side, an army of cool precision.
The Blues are on a rampage.
And a ruthless state of mind.
This is a game like no other. They are always brutal.
The fearless gladiators will unleash raging fury.
Physicality like we have not seen.
It's war for the Origin throne.
Oh, what a moment in Origin history.
Exclusive, live, free.
It doesn't get any better.
Ampol, State of Origin.
And let's get right into it. And yes, what a match we had last Wednesday. Of course, that was the first Ampol State of Origin coming at the Accor Stadium in New South Wales. And it was the Maroons coming out on the top. Congratulations to the Maroons for taking out the first game of the three-game series, winning 38-10, and what a walkover by DCE, or Daly Cherry Evans, and his team. The Queensland skipper and veteran halfback Daly Cherry Evans has steered his state to its biggest win in Sydney, with a 38-10 victory over New South Wales in Origin Game 1. You wouldn't know he's 35 years old and in his 14th year of first grade rugby league, because DCA was everything in the toughest arena of them all. Also leading the way for Queensland was fellow veteran playmaker Ben Hunt, who started at hooker, and Hamazio Taboy Fido was forced to adjust on the run following Reese's Walsh early head knock, but looked right at home at fullback with a hat trick. And we're just going to play an audio grab.
Kudos is Daly Cherry Evans, the old fella, was awarded man of the match. How do you see that call?
Yeah, correct call. He was my pick at full time as the man of the match. I thought he was superb for Queensland. Really orchestrated the attack, led things around the park beautifully. I mean, we've seen it before from Cherry Evans at this level. He just stands up and gets the job done in the Queensland jumper. Billy Slater spoke glowingly about him in the post-match press conference, and most of his teammates speak glowingly about him every time they talk about him. And there's a reason for that. He's cool head, calm, collected. As I just said, his kicking game, is probably one of the best in the NRL. You look at the way he just lands that ball where he wants to land it every time. Very rarely puts it down the fullback's throat. And then, he also had that wonderful 40-20. He set up that last, or one of the late tries with an intercept that, he read from a mile away. For 35, he's going all right, isn't he?
Mm. Yeah, he's still got those legs in him.
Yeah, no, just a superb performance, Cherry Evans. I thought some of his teammates were in the mix for the conversation around the the man of the match award as well. But yeah, I thought Cherry Evans was definitely the right call. Real captain's knock. And Queensland need Cherry Evans to be at his best when we go to game 2 and 3. His kicking game, arguably with Nathan Cleary out, it always looks like one of the key differences between the two sides last night. And that's the way it proved.
Yeah. Another one that was probably a bit of a surprise was Tom Dearden. So was that proven to be the right call to pick him for Queensland?
Yeah, absolutely it was. As we said in the lead up to the game, it really came down to a battle of two there between Dearden and Mam, obviously with Cameron Munster out. Let's start with the fact that Cameron Munster's an incredibly hard player to replace. He's played for Queensland for a number of years, never let the state down, whether that be at 5'8" or fullback or wherever he's been asked to play. There's a reason he's been one of the best players in the game for the best part of a decade. And he was always going to be very difficult to replace. But, Dearden's got runs on the board at Origin level. I think he was the right selection from Slater. It was proven that way, even though I'd probably called for Ezra Mam to be picked. I thought Mam had a bit more spark in his game leading in, but Dearden was good last night. But yes, playing against the 12-man Blues, everything probably has to be taken into perspective a little bit, with a grain of salt in that way. But the way Dearden played, you'd argue that he's now got that spot locked up. Game 2 and 3, he's not going to lose it based on the way he played last night. Really cut the Blues defence to ribbons at times. Combined very well with Cherry Evans. Didn't sort of step on Cherry Evans' toes. They both played their own styles and did it very, very well. I guess it shouldn't really come as a huge surprise. Dearden's been in great form for the Cowboys. Even though the Cowboys have been struggling a little bit at NRL level, their form has been sort of up and down throughout the first 3 months of the season. Dearden, he's been fantastic. He's been the rock in that side, easily their best player, and he was in the best couple for Queensland last night. Certainly, not man of the match for mine, like some people were trying to suggest to me after the game, but certainly in the best few, and his spot is not in danger for the rest of the series.
Yes. Daly Cherry Evans always doing his best for Queensland and for his club at Manly Sea Eagles. Another great player that helped Queensland take the chocolates on last Wednesday night was the Hammer. And let's hear his exploits.
Hamaso Tabuai-Fidow has starred for the Queensland Maroons in the first half of Game 1 of the State of Origin series.
Queenslanders everywhere, take your pick. The Hammer. A try-scoring freak.
Now that's all they're looking for, Queensland. There's just that mismatch. There's always going to be an overlap either side of the play of the ball. And that time it was a lovely ball from Jaden Sewer.
Scoring 2 almost identical tries, the Hammer has taken advantage of an undermanned New South Wales team.
Behind Lomax and Talangi, and the Hammer is there again.
Oh, once again, we're going to see this all night. Just coming to the left side for Queensland. I know they're down a man, but geez, there were some 4 tackles involved in this try.
Yeah. Selwyn Cobbo just too big and strong.
He has impressed on both sides of the field with a spectacular try-saver to stop the rampaging Spencer Leniu.
Fend, bump, fend again. Nice little offload.
Finds Leniu powering. I'm not sure whether he's got grass on ball there. There are a lot of Queenslanders around and there's not great excitement amongst the New South Wales squad.
That's a remarkable effort.
It doesn't hit the ground there, the ball, but Hamaso, he holds the ball up.
With Reece Walsh ruled out for a HIA for the majority of the game, the Hammer has been forced to play at fullback.
There's no double movement. The ball doesn't hit the ground. This is an amazing save from Hamaso. Absolutely amazing. Look how he gets his knee in there.
Yes, the Hammer. Another great player for the Maroons. And we look forward to seeing Queensland and New South Wales going at it again in a 3 weeks' time for the second game of State of Origin. You're listening to the Rampage League podcast. We'll be right back after these announcements.
Have you thought about promoting your business, event or product on radio? Getting your product, service on radio is easier than you think. Consider sponsoring Adelaide's only dedicated rugby league podcast on Ausports Radio. In return for your sponsorship, We offer fully voiced and produced sponsorship announcements played during the live recording and broadcast, as well as online promotion if that tickles your fancy as well. For more information, send an email to our marketing team at ozsportsonline.com for all of your rugby league news and results from the NRL and South Australian Rugby League. Listen to Rampage League podcast every Tuesday on mixler.com from 6 p.m. to 7:30.
Yes, NRL 2024. What a great season it has turned out to be. And we've still got quite a bit of the season to go. And we're just going to, the score summary in the first Ampol State of Origin game and the tries for New South Wales were Tedesco in the 14th minute and Lomax in the 44th minute. And for Queensland, it was Hunt in the 5th minute, Tabai, Fido, and he actually had two tries. Tabai also 2 tries. Hunt with a try. Coates, Tabai, Fido, and conversion. And New South Wales' only conversion was kicked by Hines. Conversions for Queensland were Holmes with 3 successful conversions. Actually, he made all 6 successful conversions and finished off with a penalty goal to secure the win for Queensland. This is the Rampage League podcast coming to you live from the Brew Boys Brewery down here in Croydon Park, South Australia. And if you're in the area or just come down anytime during the week and partake in their excellent food and the beautiful brews that are made right here at the Brew Boys Brewery. And yes, we actually did have some club rugby league going on in between all the excitement of State of Origin. We had the Cowboys versus the Warriors. It was the Warriors over the Cowboys, 42-12. Broncos taking on the Sharks, and this was a very good game. And Sharks keeping their good record going with 22-12 over the Broncos. And the Storm versus the Knights. It was a closer game than the other 2 games. It was the Storm coming out successfully 36-28 over the Newcastle Knights. And sadly, my team went down to the Panthers versus the Sea Eagles. Panthers 32 over Sea Eagles with a 10-point victory there to the Panthers. And it was the Bulldogs versus the Eels. The Bulldogs getting up with a win, quite a very good win over the Eels, 22-18. And of course, with the State of Origin, we had 3 byes: the Dolphins, the Raiders, and the Roosters. And we have one of my favourite segments. I know it's Rolly's favourite segment when he's in Adelaide, when he's not working.
Up the ladder, down the ladder, one by one, the ladder. Up the ladder, down the ladder, one by one, the ladder.
We have, on top of the ladder, we have Melbourne, who have played 12 games with 9 wins on 22 points, followed by the Cronulla Sharks with 10 wins and 22 points. And the points difference between the Melbourne Storm and the Cronulla Sharks is 83-80. Coming in at number 3, we have the Penrith Panthers with 9 wins and 20 points. Dolphins are still in the top 4. Nice to see the Dolphins up there in the top 4. They're a game behind. They've only played 12 games so far. That's because they had the bye. They'll make up the 13 games this week. They've got 7 wins and 18 points. The Raiders from Canberra are sitting in the 5th spot with 7 wins and also an 18 points. The Sydney Roosters sitting in 6th place and with 7 wins and 16 points. The Canterbury Bulldogs in 7th with 7 wins and 16 points. And Brisbane round out the top 8, sitting in the 8th position with 7 wins and 16 points. Looking down here to the rest from number 9 to 17, it's the St George Illawarra Dragons with 7 wins and 16 points. Warriors just out of the top 8 in 10th spot in that 13, 6 wins and 15 points. My mighty Manly Sea Eagles are sitting in the lowly position of 11 with 6 wins and 15 points. North Queensland Cowboys in 12th with 7 wins and 14 points. Newcastle are sitting in 13th place with 6 wins and 14 points. In the 14th position is the Parramatta Eels with 4 wins and 10 points. Gold Coast Titans sitting in 15th with 3 wins and 10 points. The South Sydney Rabbitohs have come off the bottom and are sitting in 16th with 3 wins and 10 points. And the West Tigers round out the ladder, the NRL ladder here, with 2 wins and 8 points. Not a very good start to Benji Marshall's tenure as the Tigers coach. Hopefully they can pick up and get a little bit higher.
Up the ladder, down the ladder, one by one, the ladder. Up the ladder, down the ladder, one by one, the ladder.
You're listening to the Rampage League podcast, brought to you by the great crew here at Brew Boys Brewery. And we've been asked to quite a few times to play an interview that we played a couple of weeks ago, actually probably about 3 weeks ago, involving one of our presenters, Rolly, talking to Stacey at 5AA.
But this morning, when I was listening to Breakfast, they were talking rumours. They have a little rumour file chat on a Wednesday morning, and someone rang in. I mean, they're not called Unicycle, but that was the name given to this caller because it's an anonymous little chat. And this is what Unicycle said.
Unicycle, good morning. Good morning, fellas. There is a rumour going around that with South Australia wanting to have a team in the NRL, that there's a possibility within the next 5 years that the NRL are going to have a gather round in Adelaide. Really? Gather round in Adelaide and a magic round? And because that is the timeline that Vegas has done, and they won't be competing with AFL in Queensland, the rumour is that it's coming to Adelaide.
There you go. Is the magic round for the NRL coming to Adelaide? I heard that, and look, I wasn't overly excited about having a magic round in Adelaide, but what I was excited about was having more NRL in Adelaide. Last year we had the State of Origin here, one of the State of Origin games, and it was great. I loved it. My dad came over from Sydney. We went together. We watched at Adelaide Oval. It was like being a kid again because, yes, I grew up. Don't hold it against me, but I grew up in Western Sydney and I loved going to NRL games. What do you think? 8223 0000. Would you like to see a return of the Adelaide Rams? Or would you like to see just a bit more NRL played in Adelaide? John in Modbury Heights has given us a call, 8223 0000. Hello, John.
Hello there, Stacey. Yeah, I'd love to see the NRL coming to Adelaide. I follow the Warriors. And also, I think I listened to an Auckland New Zealand sports show, and they were saying the other day, and they got a competition that is sponsored by South Australian Tourism, about a Wales rugby team coming to Adelaide, and it's going to be a combined Australia-New Zealand team playing a Wales rugby team, and the prizes were accommodation at the hotel at the Adelaide Oval, plus a roof climb, plus return airfares. And the people that ring up automatically get $250 and to win the prize to come to Adelaide to watch this game of rugby between Wales and an invitation Australia-New Zealand team. And I'm not too sure on the date, but it's sponsored by if a tourism.
Oh, well, there you go. I'll have to look into it.
Yeah. I'm not too sure of the date, but then that's what the competition is all about, and they run it on their weekly sports show. People ring in, and they've got to answer these questions to qualify for the draw, which is quite a good prize.
Oh, well, thanks for the call, John. That's a great tip. I'll have to look into it. That's John in Modbury Heights, 8223 0000 is the number. Give me a call. What do you think? Would you like to see the Adelaide Rams make a comeback? I think I know someone who would. Simon Rowland is the host of the Rampage League podcast. He's also got a change.org petition to bring them back. Hello, Simon.
Oh, how are you going?
Good. What did you think when you heard this morning? You'd like to see the Rams back?
Definitely would love to see the Rams back. I was pretty excited to hear the news of possibly that major round come around, and then obviously have their team that late would be fantastic.
Now, look, you and I probably know that we're in the minority in Adelaide in terms of rugby league supporters, but I don't think you have to be one or the other. I think you can like AFL and also enjoy watching an NRL game.
100%. We can't compete against AFL in South Australia, but there's definitely room for us to have a rugby league team in NSA. We've got plenty of supporters already. We've got the Jump Back Army on Facebook, over 500 members there. I think that if you had a team, it tends to be like alternative when the Crows or Port aren't playing in Adelaide, there's something others to watch them. Just sit on the couch watching on the TV. You can go to the game with Wild Port.
Did you go to the State of Origin last year?
I did. I went last year in my Adelaide Rams jersey, and we had about 9 or 10 people wearing old Rams gear. So I was there, 48,000 people, and a lot of people talked to us about the Rams. And I remember the Rams from '98. But it was exciting to see other people talking about the Rams.
Oh, I need to get myself a jersey.
I've bought a few jerseys now, like a few hats, like old stuff you buy on eBay, and I wear it around. Try to get people noticing that. I remember the Rams back in '98, so yeah, maybe you could have one.
Yeah. So they were only around for a couple of years, the Rams.
Yeah, so '97 the Super League year, and then they were 1 year in the NRL, and then had to coach these teams, and because the Rams were owned by New Zealand, then they were the unlucky team to miss out. But it's a shame. So I think if the Rams were still around today, they'd probably be one of the most successful clubs in the NRL, because you see Golden Storm are so successful in the AFL now. So I think that we could have been successful if we were given a chance, which we weren't.
What were the crowds like when the Rams were here?
So the first year, the first game at Adelaide was like 28,000 people at Adelaide. I interviewed Jared Walters on my podcast, the Rampage League podcast last year, and he said it was like one Origin game. It was like a grand final, absolutely amazing. And then the crowd still were good for that year and for the second year. The second year we were down the bottom of the ladder, but we still had the fourth best crowd overall for the season. So there's still plenty of people going to the games, even though they weren't successful. If we had a successful team, I think we'd be right up there with Grantham.
And I think that's the thing that people that have grown up with AFL in Adelaide don't get, is that NRL games aren't that highly attended anyway. Like, I remember going to even the derby between Panthers and Parramatta Eels, Penrith Panthers and Parramatta Eels, and that was like, the Western Suburbs teams. There's a real hatred and rivalry. It would be like Port and Crows having a showdown here. And, it was you were over the moon if there was 20,000 people there. So 20,000 is like, wow, for an NRL game.
Exactly. I remember going to some games in Canberra, and you get like 6,000, 7,000. It's not big at all. When you get 28,000 in a game at Adelaide, it's amazing for a league team.
Yeah, all right. Well, might have to jump on the petition and sign it myself, Simon. Thanks for your time this afternoon.
Thank you so much. Definitely sign a 500. To give it to Parliament to try and get a team in Adelaide.
All right. We'll see what we can do, Simon. Thank you. That's Simon Rowland, host of the Rampage League podcast, and that petition is a change.org one. Let's go to Paul in Pennington. He's on the phone. Hello, Paul.
Hi, Frank. How you going?
Good. What do you think?
Bring the NRL match round to Adelaide. Bring NRL to Adelaide. I'm a massive Panthers fan, and I would give anything to see them come here. I've been over to watch them interstate. I've been to Magic Round in Brisbane. It's massive for the Brisbane economy, and people don't realise that you would get a lot of people from the eastern states coming over in a similar manner to what we had on last weekend. And if they spread games between Adelaide Oval and Highmark Stadium, it would be phenomenal for our economy. So, and the games are 80 minutes. They're close on a rectangular field. They're tough and hard. It's just wonderful. And I think people should probably give NRL or rugby league a bit more of a go because it's a great sport.
Totally agree with you. And that's the thing. You could play them at Hindmarsh because it's the same shape and it's a good sized stadium for NRL games where you just can't play AFL there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Hindmarsh is a perfectly boutique rectangular stadium like the NRL grounds in Sydney. And if they brought a team back in Adelaide, I'd certainly be going every week. I'd still be going for my Panthers.
Would you? Your Panthers diehard. Well, they've been going well lately as well, so good on you.
No worries.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Paul. Thanks for the call.
Okay.
It's Paul in Pennington, 82230000. We might return to this a bit later and see what you think. Would you like to see the Adelaide Rams make a comeback or maybe some more NRL games played here in Adelaide?
When kids play rugby league, they're part of something bigger than a team. Whoa! Cool! They're part of a community that's safe, fair, and fun. Play something unreal. PlayRugbyLeague.com.
Yes, that's right. Always a great game for kids to play. And great way to keep fit and meet new friends. You're listening to the Rampage League podcast. And if you do want to help to get Adelaide a rugby league team, the Adelaide Rams Jumbuck Army Foundation committee is in its forming stages, and we're always looking for members to come along who are passionate rugby league fans who would love to see a team back in Adelaide. We were looking for people who have experience in a rugby league or in the business sector who would like to help us put a business case together to present to the NRL SA and to the NRL and to the South Australian government. All you have to do is be passionate about rugby league, preferably live in Adelaide. But if you don't and you're still very passionate, we'd love to still hear from you. And to express your interest, all you got to do is send us an email at admin, that's ADMIN, at ozsports, that's OZ, sportsonline.com. That email again is admin, ADMIN, at ozsports, OZSPORTS, online.com. And we'll definitely be in touch to let you know when our first meetings comes. But yeah, come along, be part of history and help Adelaide get a rugby league team back in Adelaide. You're listening to the Rampage League podcast. Time to have a look at this week's round. It kicks off on Thursday night, round 15. Tips and predictions. It's getting tight at the top and bottom of the ladder. Check out our expert footy tips for this week. And it kicks off on Thursday night with the Raiders versus the Cowboys. And my tip is, I would have to say, I think I'd go Raiders for my tip. That's on Thursday night, Raiders versus Cowboys. On Friday, on Friday, it's the Rabbitohs and Broncos, and I think there's only one way you can tip that game, and that is the Broncos over the Rabbitohs. And the Saturday games. The early game at 2:30 is the West Tigers versus the Titans, and I would have to go Titans for that game. And the Saturday at 5 o'clock game is the Eels versus the Roosters. I would have to say my tip would have to be the Eels for that game. That's the Eels versus the Roosters, and my tip is the Eels. On Sunday, the early game at 1:30 in the afternoon is my mighty Sea Eagles taking on the Dragons. And I'm going to tip heart over head for this game. I'm going to go Sea Eagles over the Dragons. And the late game on Sunday is the Knights and the Panthers. This one's going to be I think this will go down to be probably the game of the round here between the Knights and the Panthers. And going on what the Panthers are doing, I would have to tip the Panthers for that round. That's this weekend's games kicking off on Thursday night. And of course, the bye has the Bulldogs having the week off this week. My name's Darren, and you're listening to the Rampage League podcast, coming to you live from the great venue here down at the Brew Boys Brewery down here in Croydon Park, South Australia.
For all of your rugby league news and results from the NRL and South Australian Rugby League, listen to Rampage League podcast every Tuesday on Mixlr.com from 6 p.m. to 7:30.
Do you follow rugby league? Are you a passionate rugby league fan? Want to see a rugby league team in Adelaide? If you answered yes to these questions, then we want to hear from you. Here at the Rampage League podcast, we're looking for the next presenter, someone who will bring their passion and enthusiasm to the Rampage League podcast. Someone who wants a rugby league team back in Adelaide. For more info, send an email to producer Darren at admin@ozsportsonline.com.
Have you thought about promoting your business, event, or product on radio? Getting your product, service on radio is easier than you think. Consider sponsoring Adelaide's only dedicated rugby league podcast on Ozsports Radio. In return for your sponsorship, we offer fully voiced and produced sponsorship announcements played during the live recording and broadcast, as well as online promotion if that tickles your fancy as well. For more information, send an email to our marketing team at ozsportsonline.com.
Yes, that's right. We're always looking for great sponsors to come on board, just like the excellent crew here at the Brew Boys Brewery, becoming our venue sponsor. And we appreciate them giving the Rampage League podcast a home. And yeah, if you're thinking about sponsoring or looking for ways to promote your event, your product, or your service, then why not think about the Rampage League podcast? You can send us an email at admin, ADMIN, at ozsportsonline.com. And now we're just going to go back to some State of Origin news, as I've just received some latest news. It's good news for the Blues as Stars begin race for recall. Panthers fullback Dylan Edwards and Knights centre Bradman Best will be looking to make their way into the Blues side for Game 2 after being after being named to return from injuries in round 15, while Nico Hines is also back on deck after a quad injury denied Edwards a chance to make his Origin debut in last week's series opener. A 28-year-old will be desperate to prove his fitness after being named in Penrith's round 15 clash against the Knights. The three-time premiership winner was handed first shot at fullback by coach Michael Maguire, however was ruled out 4 days prior to the match, with former Blues skipper James Tedesco called in to replace the gun at number 1. In another sigh of relief for the Blues fans, Panthers teammate Liam Martin is a chance of making a comeback from an ankle injury that ruled him out of Sunday's victory over Manly after being included in the wider reserves. Fellow Blues hopeful, Best has also been named to return from a hamstring injury in the Sunday afternoon match, with the 2023 US South Wales debutant well in contention after Joseph Suai was handed a 4-match suspension for a reckless high tackle on Reece Walsh. With Latrell Mitchell also a contender to fill the vacant centre position after his starring performance for South Sydney on Saturday, Best will have 80 minutes to prove he's the man to help keep the Blues series alive before Maguire selects his side following the Sunday afternoon clash. Meanwhile, after being rested from the Sharks' victory over the Broncos on Saturday, Hines has been cleared to play the Dolphins on Thursday despite struggling with an ongoing calf injury, with Cronulla star was given the first crack at the number 7 jersey for Game 1, but has found himself in a shootout with Mitch Moses for Game 2 after the Ill star returned in fine form from a foot injury in round 13. Sharks coach Craig Fitzgibbon confirmed on Saturday that Hines didn't re-injure his calf in Origin, however, wouldn't have got through the round 14 fixture in Brisbane. He got through Origin okay. He's got a bit cramp at the end of the game, which was probably a warning sign there, but hasn't re-injured it, Fitzgibbon said in post-match on Saturday. It would have been a dangerous game to put him on there. We knew he wouldn't have got through it on Saturday. But with a 5-day turnaround against the Dolphins, he'll be fine. For us, anyone that gets a crack, it's such a good opportunity, and they're fulfilling their dreams as rugby league players. You'd like to see him go again. In another big boost for New South Wales, Manly forward Hamol Olaku Atu has been named to start in Sunday's clash against the Dragons, despite suffering a calf injury last week, which restricted him to just 24 minutes. Maroons coach Billy Slater will also be relieved to see Game 1 debutant Jermaine Hopgood named at number 13 for the Eels after interim coach Trent Barrett admitted he shouldn't have played in round 14 due to a nerve problem in his back. And Game 2 of the Ampol State of Origin kicks off on Wednesday, the 26th of June. And here's Turbo talking to the media after their loss to the Maroons. You'll listen to the Rampage League podcast coming to you from the Brew Boys Brewery down here in Croydon Park, South Australia. And that is going to bring us, and we'll be right back.
You're tuned into the Rampage League podcast with Simon and Holding the Ball.
Yes, that's right. Hold the Ball and Simon or Rowley aren't available this week. They've got work and family commitments, and Tamal has family commitments, but they'll all be back very soon. My name is Darren, and this is the Rampage League podcast. And let's take a look at just some of the games that have been played this coming weekend. Let's start with the Eels versus the Roosters. Silvio is set to return, and Watson back on deck. With their mini revival halted after just one game, the Eels must regroup quickly as they confront a team that have beaten just once in their past 5 meetings. After a much-needed victory over the Sharks in round 13, the Blue and Golds crashed back to earth on Monday when they were unable to subdue an injury-ravaged Bulldogs outfit at Accor Stadium. The loss of Micah Silvio to a hamstring injury just prior to kickoff didn't help the Eels' cause, but at 18-10 with 15 minutes to play, they would have expected to go on with the job and rack up their 5th win of the season. The Roosters, meanwhile, had their feet up over the long weekend, taking the opportunity to recharge the batteries as they embark on a pivotal month of games against the Eels, Bulldogs, West Tigers and Dragons. With the points differential plus 133 in the competition, Roosters have a distinctive advantage over the clump of teams around them on the ladder, but they need to start stringing some wins together if they are to make the finals for an 8th straight season. And that they clash on Saturday at 7:05 Eastern Time. And sports bets have got the Eels at $2.81 and the Roosters at $1.44. Micah Silvio is back on the wing after being a game day withdrawal last week due to a hamstring injury. Maroons forward Jermaine Hopgood has been included in number 13 jersey, but remains in doubt after interim coach Trent Barrett admitted he shouldn't have played in round 14 due to a nerve problem in his back. After starting last week at prop, Wiramu Greg is out of the 17, while Darjen Azari reverts to bench. Edge forward Ryan Madison is listed among the reserves. He looks to return from illness. Looking at the Roosters, with all their origin contingent good to go following last week's bye, there are a number of changes to the last Roosters team which took to the field in round 13. Michael Jennings drops back to the replacement player, while Sitirium Tupanai, Blake, Steep and Suiui Wong all drop off the interchange. Connor Watson returns from an throat injury to start at hooker in place of Brandon Smith. And next game we're going to take a look at is the Sea Eagles versus the Dragons. Puyamoli good to go. No changes for Flano. After winning just 5 games all season in 2023, the Red V continue to rise under the guidance of Shane Flanagan, with 7 victories already on the board this year. Dragons' latest win was a round 14 rout of West Tigers, which featured a club record 32 points for Zach Lomax, who backed up from his Origin debut 48 hours earlier to post 3 tries, 10 goals in the 56-14 victory. It marked the first time since round 13, 2021 against Brisbane that the Dragons had racked up 50 points in a game and has them positioned 9th on the ladder outside the 8 on points differential only. Sea Eagles were also in good mood to score tries in round 14, coming up with 5 against the Panthers, but a poor afternoon off the tee for Ruben Garrick meant only one of those was converted in a 10-point loss. Of the 35 meetings between these sides since the Dragons entered the competition on 1998, Red V have won 23, including 2012 triumph at Wynn Stadium earlier this season. And Sports Bets has the Dragons at $2.67 and the Manly Sea Eagles at $1.48, and that's at 4 Pines Park in Sydney. Team news. Damaging second rower Hamoli Olakato is named to start despite suffering a calf injury last week, which restricted him to just 24 minutes. Nathan Brown comes in to start at prop in place of the suspended Josh Aloe, with Ethan Bullimore U-face on the bench. Dragons no changes to the 17 players who destroyed the West Tigers in round 14. Luciano Luai is named to start in the second row, but could drop back to the bench prior to kickoff, as was the case last week. Versatile forward Fa'amana Brown is the replacement player, and that's on 1:30 on this Sunday. Our final game that we'll take a look at is the Warriors versus the Storm. SJ returns Lurumia in at centre. The last time they met back in round 2, the Warriors and Storm played out one of the most thrilling games of the season to date. An unbelievable finish by Xavier Coates, with seconds on the clock, completed an incredible Storm comeback win in which they scored 12 points in the final 2 minutes to extend their winning run over the Warriors to 15. This Saturday, Melbourne head crossed the Tasman for the return leg, looking to protect their spot atop the NRL Telstra Premiership ladder against a Kiwi side who are unbeaten in their past 3 games and looking to move back into the top 8. Storm were effective, if far from perfect, in a 36-28 victory over the Knights in round 14, while the Warriors trounced the Cowboys 42-12 last up. Craig Bellamy's men have won in 5 of the past 6 visits to Go Media Stadium, and that one loss wasn't even against the Warriors, instead coming up against the West Tigers in a game taken there as part of an Auckland doubleheader in 2018. Sportsbet has the Warriors at $1.95 and the Storm at $1.89. Just remember, gamble responsibly. Team news. Warriors Sean Johnson returns for his first game since round 10 when he suffered a pectoral injury and will partner T. Maria Martin in the half. Channel Harris Tavita keeps the spot in the 17 on the bench at the expense of Freddie Lucic. Roger Tavasia Sheck out with a hamstring is in the extended squad, but is likely to be held back until round 16. For the Storm, Dean Iramia comes in for his first game of the season at centre, with Remus Smith out after suffering concussion at the back end of last week's win over the Knights. Iesula Katoa is free to play in Auckland for the first time since he left the Warriors in 2022 after receiving a monetary fine for a dangerous contact charge picked up last week. And that game between the Warriors and the Storm is on Saturday, the 15th of June at 5 o'clock. And that's the 3 games we're looking at tonight. And that brings our podcast to an end this evening, or
Go the Rams. Adelaide to bring it out from their own line. And met by some very willing Auckland defence. And pushed back a couple of metres. Darren Walters just goes from dubbing half to pick up Darren Doherty. 25 metres out from his own line.
As now the Adelaide Rams make their way out onto Marathon Stadium for the first time.